Okay, we're going to go down the battery fail rabbit hole on this session today. I'm Lonnie West with LHC Preamps, and I'm here with Chris Caruso of Chris Caruso Bass Guitars. Chris and I have been working on a few things over the last few years, and he's kind of like my, I would say, intellectual counterpart when it comes to everything bass guitars. Everything that I can't do, you do. We've had some good conversations about some crazy things sometimes. So what we're going to talk about today is the legacy preamp and what happens when the battery goes bad on it. Up to this point, my advice to most folks had been, hey, you've got a lot of warning before your battery goes bad because I start to feel it before I hear it, like when a battery's going soft. Has that been your experience in the past?
I know a lot of times for me, what I notice is when I'm doing a sound check, you hit that low E and it sounds like it's clipping the channel. It's real distorted, but it's not clipping. It's just the battery dying. You can feel it, you can hear it, and you know
Yeah.
it's done.
My experience is a little different because even before I can hear that distorted tone, I'll start to feel almost like a more compression comes on, like it gets a little bit more squashy playing. Okay, I'll set that one aside because I know it needs a new battery. That leads us to what happened to you, and I'll turn it over to you to tell the story about this catastrophic failure.
Yeah, catastrophic failure. Right in the middle of the gig, first set, probably a couple of songs into it, started to sound like a really bad synth pedal. And I have a synth pedal in my chain, so I didn't know if something was wrong with that or what was going on, because there was some RF noise that was coming in along with it, and it was a really weak signal. And for lack of a better word, it just started farting. So I changed basses right away, finished the rest of the set, checked everything over on break, playing it in my in-ears, and everything seemed to be working, sounded good. So when we started the second set, dummy me went back to the first bass.
Oh no.
Yeah, as soon as we got about halfway through the first song, it started farting on me again. So I said, okay, you're done.
Wow. So up till that point, it everything was going fine, and it just suddenly within a song or two just went out.
Yeah, I said, you're done. Grab the other bass and finish the show. Now, when I got back home, and again, I don't know what your experience has been, but for me, if I'm testing a battery and it's below like 7.5 volts, then I know that it's time to change that. So I get home, I put the thing up on my bench and pull the battery out and test it. And I just literally watched it. 5.5, 5.4, 5.3, 5.2.
And that's where you kind of tagged me on it. So Chris sent me his legacy preamp to do some testing on. Now I'd had one last year that I'd done initial comparison with the LHC and legacy video on, and had since sold that off to somebody who wanted the legacy because I don't use it. So I got this one in with the intent on kind of doing the same testing we did with the LHZ, where I would try it at different voltages, at 9 volts and then 8 volts and 7 volts, all the way down until we got nothing, just to see what would happen. So I was expecting that when we got to around 5 volts, this thing was going to sound like shit because that's the symptoms you had. And I could tell is even when we move down to 8 and 7 volts, you can see on the diagrams where it's like the frequency range is just falling off and the dynamics are falling off, but it's still sounding okay-ish. It's starting to get a little distorted, but something you could limp along with, I think, until you get down to about 4 volts and below, where now it's starting to sound like that. So I'm confused because I'm like, wow, I was expecting this to fall off at like 5 or 6 volts. So then I go down the battery rabbit hole of learning about what happens when a battery starts to fail. And we all, I think most players, you and I included, put a battery voltage tester on there. I'm like, hey, I got voltage. We're good. When a battery starts to fail, it actually builds up internal resistance, which is something I wasn't really aware of. And there's a lot of tech notes from the manufacturers about what that is. But you can think of it conceptually this way. Take your 9-volt battery, run it through a resistor, and then plug that into something. So the resistor acts as a current limiting device. So it's like I could put a 9-volt battery through a 1K resistor. I'll still read 9 volts on the other side, but it's no longer able to give you the same current that it could before. That's what happens when a battery starts to fail. Aside from it not delivering the voltage anymore, its internal resistance goes up and up and up, meaning the amount of current that it can provide at that voltage drops through the floor. So I didn't really have a way of testing this, so I just did a practical test. I took a battery that I had, I shorted that thing out until it was dead, let it recover, and it's like, all right, it came back. Now, I read this battery on my meter like you did, no load, and it's like it's reading 9.06 volts, which is a little lower because most of my Duracells anyway will read like 9.6 or so, like 9.5 volts when they're fresh. So it's 9.06, which tells me, okay, this battery's probably weak. Then I plug it into the LHZ, and then I measure the voltage on it as it's powering the LHZ. Now it drops down to like 8 something volts, like 8.8, I think. Still enough to power the LHZ, and the LHZ would still be sounding fine because it's still getting almost 9 volts. It's not really going to sound bad until it gets to around 6 volts or so. It'll be fine. So then I plugged it into the Legacy, and that sucker dropped down to 2.5 volts. I mean, just like, and it's the difference is the Legacy preamp draws 6.6 milliamps of current, which is not a lot in the electrical world, but most of your preamps, like the LHZ and others like it, draw less than 1 milliamp. Actually, the LHZ draws 0.39 milliamp. So think of it this way: the Legacy is drawing 16 times more current than the LHZ is, which is a lot. But the problem is as we like to think of that battery gracefully aging and slowly losing voltage, the more current you're drawing, the more its internal resistance builds up. You basically run off of a cliff like that, which makes total sense why you had a sudden failure from, hey, everything's sounding great, to farting noises and nothing at all. It was a complete surprise to me. So the question before us now is, what can we do as practical gigging musicians to be able to make sure this doesn't happen to us? And I'm not telling people out there, dump those Legacies. They're great preamps. They really are. You have to be aware that there is a difference in the current draw, I think, is number one that we have to tell people. So if you got a Legacy in there, you're going to have to be more aware of how much life you've got on that battery.
Yeah, that's the advice everybody gives. Check the battery or set up a schedule when when you're going to change them, like maybe once a year. But luckily or unluckily for me, and this isn't all of them, but I've got like 20 basses. So for me to throw 20 basses up on a bench before a gig and test the batteries, yeah, it's not going to happen. So yeah, you got to have a schedule and know when you're going to change them, or you risk it going down on you in the middle of a show or middle of a song, like it did for me.
So I think my best advice comes down to really two things. First is understand that if you're playing the Legacy, you're going to have shorter battery life than you do with other preamps. When we look at the chart comparing the LHZ to the Legacy is very much like most preamps that are drawing about a milliamp of current. You're going to have 300 plus hours of performance time. With the Legacy, that's much reduced. You'll see that the Legacy curve falls off pretty quick after about 30 hours or so. If you look at, I would say, if we arbitrarily pick 8 volts as our go, no-go point when we're testing these batteries under load, then you get about 35 hours with the Legacy versus 350 hours with the LHZ or another preamp. For me, I kind of equate that to gig time. How many performances can I get before I change a battery? So if I'm assuming each performance is 5 or 6 hours, counting performance time, leaving my bass plugged in, sound check, whatnot, then maybe every 5 gigs or so, I'm probably going to be changing the battery with the Legacy. Versus with the LHZ, I know that I'll start feeling the change in dynamics before I need to change the battery, so I'll generally wait until I hear that. That's the battery failure rabbit hole we both went down. I think we both learned a lot from this one. It was a bit surprising. So before we close out, I was going to ask you, Chris, what do you got on your docket? So what are you working on today?
Well, I'm finishing up the Time Machine 4. And after that, I'll be getting started on the Time Machine 5. It's going to be the same base body, mahogany with the maple top on it. And this will be neck through, and it's going to be a 5-string.
Nice.
And of course, it'll be
Nice.
headless. And then I know that we're both big Kiss fans, so we're also right in the middle of building an Ace Frehley tribute Les Paul. And I'm going to try to get the finishing stuff together. So my goal is to definitely have that ready by the October anniversary.
Cool, man. On my end, we're working on a successor to the hazard lamp pedal. It's actually going to be a DI pedal that has the LHZ in it, as well as a couple other goodies, because we've got quite a few folks that are using this in their live things and are using primarily the pedal straight into a board. So trying to eliminate the need for a separate DI. So diligently working heads down on that for the last couple months now. So good things coming. Well, my man, this was a great conversation with you, and I appreciate you kind of pulling me in on this mystery, and I think we've at least got some answers on this.
Thank you. And yeah, if I'm ever looking for technical advice, especially when it comes to electronics, I know who I'm looking for.
Yeah, so the same thing when I'm like, hey, how do I do this with wood? Because you don't want me anywhere near a drill, a saw, or anything having to do with it, because I know what 16-year-old me did to a bass. I will never do that again, I promise. All right, with that, I'm out. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for having me.